Welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving headfirst into a high-stakes, multi-million-dollar collision of international trade law and cross-border logistics. If you've been following the year-to-date headline news trends, you know we're looking at a completely fascinating intersection of policies. We are talking about decisions coming out of Doug Ford's Ontario, crashing right into Donald Trump's Washington. We're breaking down how shifting USMCA, or CUSMA, depending on which side of the border you're on, tariffs are impacting the massive flow of municipal solid waste, or MSW disposal, being exported from Canada. This is a story about a ticking clock, and how Edge AI is stepping up as the ultimate shield for supply chains. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's kick things off with the absolute most critical number in North American waste logistics right now. 6 days. That's it. That is exactly how much time is left until the Section 122 tariff clock hits zero. For anyone managing cross-border shipping, this is a massive, incredibly stressful financial deadline. To understand exactly how to survive this regulatory trap using the latest Edge AI technology, we're breaking our explainer down into 6 parts: the July 24 tariff cliff, Ontario's massive waste corridor, the Circle levy cost spread, the sentient bridge solution, AI-powered trade compliance workflow, and finally, securing the circular bioeconomy.
So, Section 1, the July 24 tariff cliff. Let's look at the legal trigger that actually created this whole logistical headache in the first place.
This timeline brilliantly illustrates just how fast things escalated out of Washington. Back on February 20th, the U.S. Supreme Court handed down a decision striking down the administration's emergency tariff powers. But then, over a single weekend, literally just 4 days later, on February 24th, the administration pulled a 50-year-old statute out of its back pocket, Section 122. Bam! A sudden 15% global surcharge capped at a 15-day window. That statutory clock runs out this Thursday, July 24th, and there's a highly anticipated Section 301 final ruling dropping right before it on July 20th. It is a total nail-biter. Now, you might be wondering what the actual damage is here. Look at this stark contrast. Before February 19th, your baseline duty was 0%, as long as you had clean, perfect USMCA paperwork proving the wood was wholly obtained in North America. But from February 24th to July 24th, that safety net vanished. Every load faced a massive 15% zombie tariff surcharge unless your documentation was flawless. The gap between what a broker files and the so-called correct rate is literally a multi-million-dollar question for the industry right now.
Moving on to Section 2, Ontario's massive waste corridor. Why is this specific border crossing getting so much attention?
Because every single year, Ontario exports a staggering 3.46 million tons of municipal solid waste directly into U.S. Michigan landfills. This massive flow has held completely steady for a decade, mainly because Michigan landfills, which are protected by the U.S. Commerce Clause, simply cannot legally say no to the volume coming from Canada. To put that mountain of volume into perspective for a second, Ontario's trash makes up 14.35% of all the waste disposed of in the entire state of Michigan. We are talking about a conveyor belt of more than 200 tractor-trailer loads, making this crossing every single weekday. So yeah, any tariff disruption is going to send massive shockwaves through this entire corridor. That brings us to Section 3, the CRCIL levy cost spread. With these immense volumes, let's look at the actual financial sticks. Here is the mathematical proof of why your compliance absolutely has to be airtight. Look at the spread here. If your wood is verified clean right at the bin, the levy is a very manageable $5 a ton. But if it gets classified as mixed waste, it skyrockets to $60 a ton. So if a busy site manager relies on messy, outdated paperwork and accidentally misclassifies a clean load as mixed waste, the annual levy cost for a standard fleet balloons from under $1 million to nearly $12 million. $12 million. To break that down to a single truck level, you are saving exactly $1,053 per 144-yard mothership load. That is pure, straight-to-the-bottom-line loss avoidance. But, and this is a huge but, you can only save that money if you can definitively prove the wood is clean at the exact point of intake.
So, how on earth do you prove it when the legal framework is constantly shifting? Let's check out Section 4, the sentient bridge solution.
The answer lies in what the 905 Wood Digital Refinery calls the sentient bridge. Basically, this acts as a highly secure, intelligent tunnel. It takes all the absolute muddy chaos of everyday construction waste and bridges it directly to the super strict high-purity requirements of the global biocarbon market. By operationalizing this system, 905 Wood is actively securing Ontario's industrial leadership in the global circular bioeconomy. And this leads us to an incredibly fascinating technological pivot. Advanced trade compliance? It no longer requires a guy standing in the pouring rain with a soggy clipboard. No, today the compliance officer is quite literally a smartphone. Let's dive into Section 5, AI-powered trade compliance workflow. We're going to see exactly how this smartphone-based shield works in the real world. The digital refinery application workflow here is just brilliantly streamlined. Step 1. AI intake happens directly on a Google Pixel 10 Pro running Android 16, utilizing those brand new Light Art AI stack features. Step 2. That L1 compliance gate visually classifies the load right there at the bin. Step 3. The system automatically handles verification and a request for, quote, instantly turning out a UI/UX output PDF documentation package that acts as an indisputable signed certificate of origin. And step 4. That digital proof locks in the lowest possible CIRCI rate, actively avoiding those massive tariffs. What is honestly so amazing about this is the nature of the AI itself. The Gemma 4 model doesn't care about politics, it isn't watching the latest trade news out of Washington or Ontario, and it doesn't care what tariff instrument happens to be active today. It simply and ruthlessly distinguishes clean dimensional wood from pressure-treated CCA lumber, every single time. The AI is a mathematical constant. It's only the tariff exposure that's constantly fluctuating. All right, as we head into our final section, Section 6, Securing the Circular Bioeconomy, let's look at some highly practical steps you can take right now. Based on all our research, here is your actionable T-6 checklist for the week ahead. First, get on the phone with your customs broker today. Have them pull filing records since February 20th for any refund candidates. Second, double-check that your clean loads actually filed under that HS 3825.0 wholly obtained exemption. Third, keep your eyes glued to the USTR's Section 301 final ruling on July 20th. Fourth, and this is big, do not renegotiate any contracts before the 150-day clock officially expires this Thursday. Finally, make sure you add an explicit fuel surge clause to your agreements. Diesel is super sticky right now at around $1.89 a liter, and you don't want tariff noise distracting you from basic operational costs. Now, let's pull back and look at the bigger picture here. The July 24 tariff cliff, as stressful as it is, it's actually just a short-term distraction. The long-term reality is that we are facing absolutely unstoppable domestic capacity limits. This 150-day tariff was merely a stress test for a much, much deeper structural reality across the border. Because guess what? On the morning of Friday, July 25th, the underlying landscape hasn't magically changed. Ontario's Bill 5 continues to carve out environmental exemptions. The RE Wood 2029 Clean Wood landfill ban is still barreling toward us on schedule. And the absolute certainty of Ontario's 2034 domestic landfill exhaustion date remains an undeniable legislative fact. Those regulatory clocks are still ticking loudly in the background. Which leaves us with one incredibly critical question to ponder. When that midnight deadline finally hits this Thursday, and the rules of cross-border trade are inevitably reset once again, is your supply chain relying on easily audited, incredibly error-prone paper, or are you operating with the undeniable invariant protection of Edge AI?